Imagine waking up one day to find yourself the only man in a village full of women. Sounds like a dream come true, right? But what if it wasn't all it's cracked up to be? In this video, we'll explore the incredible story of a man who found himself in this exact situation and the unexpected challenges he faced. Chidi, a young man in his late 20s, had spent most of his life in Lagos, a city that never seemed to rest. The bustling streets, the endless noise, and the rush of people had always made him feel alive, until recently. For the past few years, Lagos had become a source of frustration. Jobless, with no family to support him, Chidi had felt trapped in the city's chaos. He spent his days searching for work and his nights in a small, run-down apartment, wondering how his life had taken such a turn. Chidi had grown up an orphan, raised in a local foster home. With no parents or siblings to lean on, he had learned to navigate life on his own. But Lagos had been unforgiving. Finding steady work had been a constant struggle. Each day seemed to blend into the next, and Chidi was growing weary of it all. The city that once held promise now felt like a dead end. So, when his friend Emeka told him about a job in a quiet village called Umunze, Chidi didn't think twice. The offer came with good pay, accommodation, and a fresh start. Everything he needed to escape his stagnant life in Lagos. Emeka didn't give many details about the job, but that didn't matter to Chidi. All he could think about was getting out of the city and starting over somewhere new. With a mix of hope and desperation, Chidi packed his few belongings and boarded a bus that was supposed to take him to Umunze. As the bus rumbled along, the familiar sounds of the city gradually faded, replaced by the quiet hum of the countryside. Chidi watched as the tall buildings gave way to trees and open fields. The further the bus traveled, the fewer passengers remained, until Chidi was the only one left. The roads became rougher, the trees thicker, and the silence around him grew unnerving. Chidi began to feel uneasy, glancing out of the window at the unfamiliar landscape. He didn't recognize anything, and a part of him started to wonder if the driver had taken a wrong turn. Suddenly, the bus came to an abrupt stop at the edge of a dense forest. The driver turned to Chidi and said, "This is as far as I can go." Chidi frowned, confused. "But I'm not in Umunze yet," he protested. "I don't even know where I am." The driver shrugged, clearly indifferent. "This is where the road ends. You'll have to go the rest of the way on foot." Without giving Chidi a chance to argue, the driver closed the door, revved the engine and sped off, leaving him alone on the dirt road. Chidi stood there for a moment, staring after the disappearing bus, feeling a wave of frustration wash over him. He had no idea where he was, but turning back wasn't an option. He grabbed his bag and started walking, figuring he could find his way through the bushes. Maybe there was a shortcut that would lead him to Umunze. The deeper he ventured into the forest, the more lost he felt. The trees seemed to close in around him, and soon he was walking on narrow, unfamiliar paths. Hours passed, and Chidi began to doubt if he'd ever find the village. His heart pounded with anxiety as he pushed through the dense brush, unsure of what lay ahead. Just when he thought he might be lost for good, Chidi saw an opening in the trees. With a sense of relief, he stepped through the clearing and found himself standing at the edge of a quiet village. It was peaceful, with small huts scattered around and farmland stretching into the distance. The sun was starting to set, casting a soft, warm light over the village. Chidi let out a sigh, thinking he might have finally reached his destination. But as he took a few steps forward, something about the village felt strange. He had no idea that this wasn't Umunze, it was Otuoma, and his life was about to take an unexpected turn. After the long and disorienting walk through the forest, Chidi finally emerged into the quiet village of Otuoma. As he stepped into the clearing, he was struck by the beauty of the place. The distant sound of birds singing and the warm breeze that rustled through the trees. But what caught his attention most were the women. The women of Otuoma were stunning, more beautiful than any he had ever seen. Their skin glowed with health, their eyes sparkled with life, and they moved with an elegance that seemed almost unreal. Many of them were curvy, their figures captivating and alluring, and they exuded a natural grace as they worked in the fields or carried baskets of goods on their heads. Chidi couldn't help but notice how breathtakingly beautiful they were, and it only added to the strange feeling he had about this village. As soon as the women spotted Chidi, they began to stare at him with wide, curious eyes, as if he were an alien from another world. Their gazes were intense, and he could feel their eyes following him wherever he went. Chidi felt a little uncomfortable, unsure why they were looking at him with such intrigue. He had never experienced this kind of attention before, and the weight of their stares made him uneasy. Chidi tried to shake off the feeling as he continued walking deeper into the village. The stares didn't stop. Wherever he turned, the women paused their work to glance at him, whispering to each other. Some seemed shy, while others seemed more bold in their curiosity. He couldn't help but wonder why they were looking at him, as if he didn't belong. Determined to find out more, Chidi approached an elderly woman who was tending to a basket of yams. "Good evening, Ma," he greeted her politely, trying to ignore the stares from the other villagers. "Please, what's the name of this village?" The woman paused for a moment, looking at him carefully before answering. "This is Otuoma." Chidi's heart sank. Otuoma? He was supposed to be in Umunze. This wasn't where he was supposed to end up. "Otuoma?" he repeated, trying to hide his confusion. "I think I'm lost. I was headed to Umunze." The woman gave him a soft, sympathetic smile. "You're far from Umunze, my son," she said. "There are no roads to Umunze from here. You must have taken the wrong path." Chidi felt a wave of frustration wash over him. The bus driver had left him stranded, and now he found himself in a village he had never heard of. As he stood there trying to figure out what to do next, he asked the elderly woman another question. "Where are all the men?" The woman's expression changed. Her smile faded, and she looked around nervously before responding in a quiet voice. "There are no men here. Not anymore." Before Chidi could ask any more questions, the woman quickly picked up her basket and walked away, leaving him even more confused than before. What did she mean by no men? As he continued to walk through the village, unsure of what to do, a younger woman approached him. She had a curious look on her face, but seemed more open to speaking with him. "You must be the mysterious stranger," she said with a kind smile. "My name is Amara. Come with me. The elder will explain." Chidi followed Amara through the village, his mind racing with questions. He hadn't meant to come to this place, but now that he was here, he couldn't ignore the strange feeling that something was very different about Otuoma. They arrived at a small, quiet hut, where the village elder, Mama Kelechi, was waiting. She was a small woman with sharp eyes that seemed to see right through Chidi. As he sat down across from her, the sense of unease he had felt since arriving grew stronger. "Welcome to Otuoma," Mama Kelechi said, her voice calm but firm. "You are far from where you intended to be, but it is no accident that you have found your way here." Chidi didn't know how to respond. He hadn't planned to be here, and yet it seemed like everyone in the village was expecting him. Something was definitely not right about this place. "You must be wondering why there are no men here," Mama Kelechi continued, her eyes locking onto his. "There is much to explain, but first, you need to understand. Otuoma is not like other villages." Chidi sat nervously across from Mama Kelechi in her small hut, the flickering light from an oil lamp casting shadows on the walls. The sense of calm that usually filled the village seemed distant now, as the elder prepared to explain the mystery of Otuoma. Amara stood quietly near the doorway, her eyes watching Chidi closely, as if she too knew what was about to be revealed. "You are not the first man to stumble upon Otuoma by mistake," Mama Kelechi began, her voice steady but filled with the weight of history. "But I doubt you expected to end up in a village where men do not live." Chidi leaned forward, curiosity burning in his chest. "I don't understand," he said. "Where did the men go?" Mama Kelechi sighed deeply, folding her hands in her lap. "Otuoma has been under a curse for many, many years," she explained. "A curse placed on us by the goddess Neoma, the spirit who has watched over Otuoma for generations. Long ago, Neoma lived among us in human form. She was beautiful, kind, and loved by all. But more than anything, she was in love with a man from this village, a farmer named Okachukwu. Chidi listened closely, sensing the sadness in the elder's voice as she spoke. He could feel the weight of the story about to unfold. Okechukwu was a good man, Mama Kelechi continued. But like many men, he was swayed by other desires. Though Naoma gave him her heart, Okechukwu betrayed her. He chose another woman from the village, breaking Naoma's heart. In her grief and anger, Naoma revealed her true form as a goddess. She cursed Otuoma, vowing that no man could ever stay here without facing terrible consequences. The men who lived here fled in terror, and those who stayed met untimely deaths. A chill ran down Chidi's spine as he heard the words. "So there really are no men left?" he asked quietly. "None," Mama Kelechi said firmly. "The few sons that were born were sent away to live with relatives far from the village. Otuoma has become a place only for women, and the curse remains." Chidi sat back, trying to absorb the shocking truth. But why hasn't the curse been lifted? Isn't there a way to end it? Mama Kelechi's gaze sharpened as she fixed her eyes on Chidi. "There is a way," she said softly, "but it has never happened. The only thing that can break the curse is true love. Selfless, pure love. The kind Naoma once sought but never found. But no such love has existed here since the goddess was betrayed. Any man who comes here cannot stay. And even if love begins to grow, the curse takes hold before it can flourish." The room fell silent as Mama Kelechi's words sank in. Chidi's mind raced with questions, but one thing was clear. This village, peaceful and calm on the surface, held a deep, painful secret. "So, what happens to me?" Chidi asked, his voice tense. "I didn't mean to come here. I didn't even know about this place." Mama Kelechi gave him a knowing look. "You may have come here by accident, Chidi, but now that you are here, your fate is tied to Otuoma. The goddess watches, and whatever path you take from now on, you must be prepared for the consequences." As Chidi sat there, he felt conflicted. A part of him wanted to stay. Otuoma was calm, quiet, and unlike the harsh life he had left behind in Lagos. The people, despite their strange stares, seemed kind, and the thought of helping the village felt like a chance to start over. But another part of him, the more cautious side, warned him that staying might not be wise. If the village was truly cursed, he could be putting himself in danger by staying longer than he should. Should he leave now, find his way back to Umunze, and avoid becoming a part of whatever mystery held Otuoma? Chidi's mind raced with uncertainty. He had nowhere else to go, but was this really the place where he should stay? He thought about his life in Lagos. No family, no steady job, no sense of purpose. Was he going to run back to that? Or would he take a chance and see what Otuoma held for him? The longer he thought, the more confused he became. The elder's words weighed heavily on him, but no clear answers came. As Chidi stood to leave the elder's hut, his mind was still in turmoil. He glanced at Amara, who gave him a small, sad smile. "You'll need to be careful," she said quietly. "This village is not kind to men who linger too long." Chidi nodded, still processing everything he had learned. The cool air outside did little to ease his troubled thoughts. As he walked through the village, the strange stares from the women continued, and the feeling of being out of place grew stronger. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. He would have to decide soon whether to stay in Otuoma or find his way out before it was too late. After Chidi left Mama Kelechi's hut, still processing the weight of everything he had learned about Otuoma, Amara approached him. She could sense his uncertainty and offered him a kind smile. "You must be tired," she said softly. "I have an extra space in my hut if you need a place to stay for a while." Chidi hesitated, unsure of how long he would remain in the village, but he knew he didn't have many options. Night was falling, and the idea of venturing back through the forest to find his way was daunting. He nodded in gratitude, and Amara led him to her small, modest hut near the edge of the village. Her home was simple, with only the bare essentials, but it was neat and welcoming. A second mat was already laid out for him. Amara moved with a quiet grace as she began preparing a simple meal, and as they ate together, the two fell into easy conversation. As they talked, Amara shared more of her past. "I grew up here," she explained. "My parents died when I was very young, and I was raised by the other women in the village. It wasn't easy, but I made a life here." Her voice softened. "I also had a younger brother. His name was Namdi, but when he was old enough, they sent him away to live with relatives in another village, just like all the boys. I haven't seen him since, and I miss him every day." Chidi could hear the pain in her voice. Her story touched him deeply, reminding him of his own struggles. He hadn't shared his story with her yet, but the loneliness they both carried seemed to form an unspoken bond between them. Chidi felt a sense of connection with Amara that he hadn't felt in a long time. In the days that followed, Chidi began to help Amara with her daily chores. He carried water from the stream, helped tend the garden, and gathered firewood. The more time they spent together, the more comfortable Chidi felt in the village. Amara, with her gentle spirit, made him feel at ease. Soon, Chidi extended his help to others in the village. He repaired huts, helped with farming, and took on the heavier tasks that were difficult for the women to manage alone. His willingness to lend a hand and his respectful nature didn't go unnoticed. The villagers, who had initially been suspicious of him, began to warm up. One by one, they started to greet him with smiles instead of wary looks. Some brought him food, while others thanked him for his help with small tasks. Chidi could feel the shift in how they treated him. They no longer saw him as an outsider. Slowly but surely, the village began to see him as one of them. But even as he found himself becoming more and more accepted by the women of Otuoma, the curse that Mama Kelechi had spoken of lingered in his mind. He had come here by accident, and though he was starting to feel at home, he couldn't shake the feeling that his presence in the village might stir something dangerous. Amara, too, had grown closer to Chidi. Their conversations became longer and more personal, and Chidi found himself looking forward to their time together. She shared stories about her brother, about growing up without her parents, and about her fears of the village's future. Chidi, in turn, felt the urge to open up to her about his own life, the struggles he had faced in Lagos, and the loneliness that had brought him here. One evening, as they sat outside her hut, the sky dark with stars, Amara looked at him with a thoughtful expression. "You've been a great help here, Chidi," she said quietly. "But I know this isn't your home. You must have your own life waiting for you outside of Otuoma." Chidi paused, feeling the weight of her words. The truth was, he didn't have much waiting for him outside the village. The life he had left behind in Lagos seemed distant now, like a chapter he had already closed. "I don't know if there's anything for me back there," Chidi admitted. "But I do know that being here, with you, it feels different. It feels like I've found something I didn't know I was missing." Amara's eyes softened as she listened to him, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was filled with an understanding, one that neither of them had expected, but both were beginning to welcome. The quiet life Chidi had begun to build in Otuoma brought him unexpected peace, but it was not without its challenges. As he grew closer to Amara, his feelings for her deepened. He found himself drawn to her in a way he hadn't anticipated, and their bond strengthened with each passing day. She had shared her story, and now Chidi felt ready to do the same. One evening, as they sat by the fire outside her hut, Chidi finally told Amara about his past, how he had grown up as an orphan in Lagos, with no family and no support, drifting from one job to the next, always feeling out of place. "I had nothing left in Lagos," Chidi said, staring into the flames. "When my friend told me about the job in Umunze, I thought it was my chance to start over. But somehow, I ended up here in Otuoma, and I don't think that was an accident." Amara listened quietly, her gaze soft and thoughtful. "Perhaps the goddess brought you here for a reason," she said gently. "But you must be careful, Chidi. The curse is real, and Otuoma is not a place where men can stay without consequence." Chidi had heard the warnings many times, but something about Amara's words made them feel more real. He had already begun to feel at home in the village, but the shadows of the curse loomed over everything, a constant reminder that his time here might be limited. The next morning, as Chidi went about helping the villagers, Mama Kelechi summoned him to her hut. Her face was serious, and her eyes held the weight of a heavy warning. "Chidi," she began, "the goddess has noticed your presence, and she is enraged by it. Your continued stay here is angering her more each day. You need to leave before it's too late." Chidi felt a cold wave of fear wash over him, but his resolve held firm. He had begun to develop deep feelings for Amara, and the thought of leaving her behind was unbearable. The connection they shared was more than friendship. It was something deeper, something that made him feel like he had finally found a place where he belonged. "I can't leave," Chidi said, his voice firm but respectful. "I've grown attached to this village, to its people. I care about Amara. I can't just walk away." Mama Kelechi's eyes softened with understanding, but her voice remained stern. "The curse is not to be taken lightly, Chidi. The goddess's wrath is no small thing. Every man who has defied it has met a terrible fate. You staying here could bring ruin not just upon yourself but upon the village." Chidi swallowed hard. He knew the risks. The strange occurrences that had begun to plague Otuoma were proof enough that the curse was very real, but his heart had already made the decision. He couldn't leave, not now. "I won't abandon Amara," Chidi said, his voice unwavering. "I don't know what will happen, but I can't walk away from her." Mama Kelechi sighed deeply, shaking her head. "You are brave, Chidi. But bravery alone cannot protect you from the goddess's anger. If you choose to stay, you must be prepared to face the consequences." Chidi nodded, understanding the gravity of her words, but his mind was made up. He had never felt this kind of connection before, and he wasn't about to lose it, no matter the cost. As the days passed, the strange events in Otuomo grew more frequent. Unexplained sounds echoed through the village at night, animals disappeared, and there was an eerie sense that something dark and powerful was watching. The women whispered of the goddess's displeasure, and the once warm atmosphere of the village became tense. One night, a fierce storm hit the village. The wind howled, rattling the rooftops of the huts, and lightning tore through the sky. As Chidi lay in the small space Amara had given him, he heard voices outside, rising in panic. Rushing out into the rain, he found a group of women huddled together, their faces pale with fear. "There's something in the village," one of the women cried. "Something dark, something evil." Chidi's heart pounded as he scanned the village, searching for any sign of what had caused such terror. And then he saw it, a swirling mist, thick and unnatural, creeping through the village. It moved with purpose, its tendrils slithering toward the huts as if seeking someone. Chidi stood frozen, watching in disbelief as the mist seemed to reach out toward him. Amara rushed to his side, gripping his arm tightly. "It's the curse," she whispered, her voice trembling. "The goddess. She's watching." Chidi knew that staying in Otuoma had angered the goddess, but he refused to leave. His heart was set on staying with Amara no matter what dangers the curse brought. He couldn't walk away from the life he had begun to build here, and he couldn't leave Amara to face it alone. "What do we do?" Chidi asked, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at him. Amara's eyes were filled with worry, but she remained calm. "We survive," she said. "We face this together." As the storm raged on, Chidi realized that his choice to stay had set him on a path that could not be undone. The goddess was watching, and whatever trials lay ahead, he would face them with Amara by his side. The storm had passed, but the curse's grip on Otuoma tightened with each passing day. Strange events became more frequent, whispers in the wind, crops wilting overnight, and an eerie feeling that something was always watching. The villagers could feel it too, as they went about their daily lives with fear and uncertainty lingering in the air. One evening, as Chidi and Amara sat by the fire outside her hut, a sudden chill swept through the village. The air grew thick and still, and the familiar mist began to creep through the streets once again. But this time it didn't move aimlessly. The mist swirled purposefully, gathering in the village square, and from it, a figure began to form, tall, radiant, and terrifying. It was the goddess Neoma. Her presence was overpowering, her eyes glowing with fury as she descended from the mist. The villagers scattered in fear, but Chidi and Amara remained frozen in place, staring at the goddess in awe and terror. "How dare you defy me?" Naoma's voice boomed across the village, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Her eyes locked onto Chidi, burning with anger. "You, a mortal man, dare to stay in a place where no man is welcome. You think you can love where love has been forbidden." Amara rushed to Chidi's side, her heart pounding in fear. "Please, goddess," she cried, falling to her knees. "Spare him. He is not like the others. His heart is pure and he loves me. Please have mercy." But Naoma's rage only deepened. "There is no mercy for those who defy my curse," she declared. "No man can remain in Otuoma and live. His love is meaningless, and he must pay with his life." Chidi's heart raced as he faced the goddess's wrath, but despite the overwhelming fear, his mind was clear. He couldn't leave Amara. He had made his choice, and if this was the end, he would face it with courage. Stepping forward, Chidi's voice broke through the tension. "If taking my life will bring you peace, then so be it. I don't care what happens to me. I've fallen for Amara, and I cannot bear to leave her. If my death is what you need to end this, then I accept it." His words echoed in the air, and for a moment the entire village seemed to hold its breath. Amara's eyes filled with tears as she looked at Chidi, but there was no hesitation in his expression, only love and resolve. The goddess paused, her fiery gaze softening slightly as she studied Chidi. For the first time in centuries, Naoma saw something she hadn't seen in any man since Okechukwu had betrayed her. Selfless, pure love. "You would die for her?" Naoma's voice was quieter now, touched by something she hadn't expected to feel. Chidi nodded, his voice steady. "Yes, I love her. And if that means giving up my life, then so be it." The goddess's form flickered, her once burning rage dimming as she took in his words. Slowly, the mist around her began to fade, and the fierce glow in her eyes softened into something almost like sorrow. "Perhaps I have been wrong," Naoma whispered, her voice no longer filled with anger but with a deep, ancient sadness. "For so long I believed that no man could love selflessly. I believed that love was only a lie, a tool for betrayal." The mist began to dissipate completely, revealing the goddess in her full form, beautiful, but no longer terrifying. She looked at Chidi and Amara with a newfound understanding. "You have shown me what I thought impossible," Naoma said softly. "True, selfless love. The kind of love I once longed for, but never found." Amara stood, tears streaming down her face. She reached for Chidi, gripping his hand tightly. The village was silent, watching the scene unfold with bated breath. With a wave of her hand, Naoma's fierce expression melted into peace. "Because of your love, the curse is lifted," she declared, her voice no longer filled with bitterness. "Otuoma is free, and no more will men face my wrath here." Chidi felt the weight of the curse lift from the air, the heaviness that had surrounded Otuoma dissolving into nothingness. The villagers, who had watched in fear, now began to weep with relief and joy. Naoma looked at Chidi one last time. "You have given me the peace I sought for so long. You are free to love, as is your village." And with that, the goddess faded into the night, leaving behind only the quiet stillness of a village finally free from its long-held curse. Chidi turned to Amara, his heart still pounding but filled with relief. They had faced the goddess together, and now they were free to build a life without fear. After the goddess Naoma lifted the curse, the air in Otuoma seemed lighter, as if a heavy cloud that had hung over the village for years had finally disappeared. The villagers felt a new sense of freedom, and the strange occurrences that had plagued their lives ceased completely. Otuoma was no longer a place of fear and suffering. It was a village reborn. Days after the curse was broken, something remarkable began to happen. One by one, men who had left Otuoma years ago began to return. At first, the villagers were stunned, watching as familiar faces emerged from the forest trails. the men were drawn back by a feeling they couldn't quite explain. An unshakable urge that had compelled them to return to the village they had once fled. They didn't know why, but they had felt something in their hearts that told them it was time to come home. Tears of joy filled the eyes of wives and mothers as they were reunited with the men they had long thought lost. The village square, once a place of whispered warnings and fearful glances, now overflowed with laughter, tears, and long overdue embraces. The curse was truly over, and the men of Otuoma had returned to the village that had been waiting for them. For Amara, the return of her brother Namdi was the most joyful reunion of all. One afternoon, as the sun bathed the village in golden light, Namdi appeared on the path leading to the village. Amara spotted him from a distance, her heart racing with disbelief and hope. As he approached, she recognized the boyish features of the brother she had missed every day for years. "Namdi!" Amara cried, running toward him with open arms. Namdi smiled widely, his own eyes brimming with emotion. "Amara," he whispered, hugging her tightly. "I don't know why, but I had to come back. I missed you." They held each other for a long time, their bond stronger than ever, and Amara knew in that moment that Otuoma was truly a place of healing now. As the men returned, and the village began to flourish once more, the people of Otuoma turned their attention to Chidi. It was his bravery and love for Amara that had saved them all. He had faced the wrath of the goddess and had proven that true, selfless love could break even the most powerful curse. Without him, none of this would have been possible. In a ceremony filled with joy and gratitude, the villagers gathered in the square to celebrate Chidi and Amara. The elders spoke of Chidi's courage and how he had not only saved the village, but had shown them all the power of love. He had stayed when they all fled, fearing the curse. They decided, in a unanimous and heartfelt decision, to crown Chidi as their king and Amara as their queen. It was a symbol of their gratitude and respect for the two who had brought hope and healing to Otuoma. As Chidi and Amara stood before the village, crowned as their leaders, they felt the weight of their responsibility, but also the love and support of the people they had come to care for so deeply. Otuoma had been through darkness, but now it stood on the brink of a bright future. Over the years, the village began to accept the influences of civilization. Roads were built, connecting Otuoma to other towns, and trade flourished. Education became important, and the younger generation was given the chance to learn and grow. Though Otuoma maintained its traditions, it embraced the progress that came with opening itself to the outside world. Under Chidi's and Amara's leadership, the village thrived, and it became known far and wide as a place of peace, prosperity, and love. The story of Otuoma's transformation and the love that had brought about the change spread beyond its borders, inspiring others to believe in the power of true and selfless love. In the end, the story of Otuoma teaches us that love is not just a feeling. It is an action, a choice made in the face of fear, pain, and sacrifice. True love, the kind that is selfless and pure, can break even the most difficult barriers and overcome the darkest challenges. Chidi's love for Amara and his willingness to risk his life for her showed that love is the most powerful force of all. It can heal, it can save, and it can bring peace to even the most troubled hearts. In a world filled with uncertainties, the power of true love remains constant. It is a reminder that when we act out of love, pure, selfless love, we can change our world for the better.